Middlekauff! Heavy! Yeah, I said 2 tickets. $115,000. Nosebleeds. Fantastic. Thank you. Sorry about that. John was on a call.
We got it.
We got him.
Section 17, row at Z.
Section balloon helicopter. No, I rented a
Section
helicopter.
Laguna Beach.
It'll be cheaper, actually. The helicopter rental will just fly around SoFi, watch the game through binoculars. It's going to be less expensive than the tickets. Hello, YouTube. You are watching a YouTube exclusive featuring us. If you're here, it's good to have you. Hit that like button. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. We were just listening to some of what Kyle Shanahan had to say to the media. We'll get to that in a moment. Let me make sure our podcast link is down in the description below to check out our podcast.
I'm tweeting it out as well.
Boom. Okay. Get it out there. Get it out there. We'll talk about Niners injuries here. Right here, right now. Right here, right now. And, let's begin with that, and then we can rattle through comments and get to some other topics with all of you. But we just heard, you and I just listened to Kyle Shanahan's comments to the media. He started with injuries. Jeff Wilson, one of them. Deebo Samuel, he said, helmet to the knee on the play that he went hopping off. I thought maybe the helmet was a little above the knee, but helmet to the knee is what Kyle said. He will practice. He's expected to practice. X-rays negative on the ankle of Trent Williams, but it's an ankle sprain, and we'll see. So those were the significant injuries that Kyle reported.
Did he also say, like, there's some other stuff that has just been lingering that he's just been battling through?
Yep.
I think first and foremost on Trent Williams. One, unlike week 18, I do not think they could win the game without him. They need Trent Williams in the game. I think we've watched the Rams the last couple weeks with their pass rushers, specifically a guy that they gave a second and a third round pick for, who once upon a time won a Super Bowl MVP. I was in attendance for that game. This guy's coming on. Now, I don't know if he's peak Von Miller, but he's closer to Von Miller than he was, it feels like, the last couple years. So they need Trent in this game, and that to me is a concern. Because when I was at the SoFi Stadium week 18, loading up on some cocktails, I looked down at my phone, a text from you that said, Trent Williams is out, what the fuck? And I immediately tell the two guys I'm with, and their mouths hit the floor. Like, it was kind of a devastating moment for our little group in the stadium. Like, Trent Williams is out. And then I look on the internet. Wouldn't you say that was a huge story that for that hour leading up to the game? Like, Trent Williams out of the game?
Yep.
And that was his elbow, right? He couldn't get right with his elbow, and now he has an ankle.
And Von Miller made a big play in that game, and he's been playing really well. Continues to play very well.
Yeah, if you remember, the play happened at the end of the game when he sacked. I guess it was close to the end of the game. It forced the punt, which I thought was crazy, but it ended up working out on Compton. And then the next 2 weeks, to me, he's been better than he was that game, right? And
yep.
I felt yesterday watching him, didn't you? 40 was flying around everywhere with Tom Brady. Holy shit.
He looked really good. He killed him. Somebody asked, Kyle did not use the word high ankle to describe Trent Williams. It's not a high ankle sprain. That would be a major problem. He also said that Ambry Thomas is doing much better than he was doing on Sunday, so there's some optimism that he'll return. Probably helps for any of these guys, particularly, I don't know if it helps for an ankle or not, that it's not going to be 0 degrees. But I would think any injury helps it not being 0 degrees, although there was some discussion about does it help deaden the pain. But that would be good news for the 49ers as well, if Ambry Thomas can come back. I mean, he had the game-winning interception.
Yeah.
And I said at the time when we did that show live after the Rams game that he was beaten, but he wasn't. That was incorrect. He was not beaten by Odell Beckham Jr. on that game-winning pick. So that would be big as well.
I think one key is they have to figure out a way with Ambry Thomas and with Dante Johnson, because they ended up running, like they spread it out a little bit with Matt Stafford, a little, Green Bay style minus the cold, right? Those 4 or 5 wide receiver sets. Now, sometimes it's tight ends too out there, but they get Cooper Kupp. They utilize him. This is, to me, McVay's greatest attribute as a play caller is he can get 10 matched up on different people, and then he fucking gets open all the time. Yeah. It's not just, like Devontae, for the most part, out wide, you can't cover me. Kupp, because he's, I wouldn't call, he's not Tyreek Hill or Devontae, even though he's really good. little more. He benefits a lot from them scheming him open, then he kicks ass. So anytime they get 10 on 27, it's a big advantage for them. I would say the other thing, one guy also, Von Miller has come on. I think Odell Beckham's looked pretty good the last couple of weeks, just kind of flying around. Yesterday, his production I don't think was quite as high as the Arizona game, but I just thought like his speed and his urgency, I was like, God, 3 looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you. There was one ball he caught coming across the middle from like the top of the screen to the bottom of the screen, and then he cut it up the sideline. And it just reminded me that they have like, oh, maybe he is closer to Odell Beckham Jr., who's the guy that people were trying to get a few years ago. Everybody wanted him, not the guy that they got in the bargain.
I do think the good thing is their linebackers are healthy, because Higbee has been a little bit of a problem for them. And I like Higbee too. He's just – it's weird. The 49ers have this star tight end, and now that he's healthy, they just kind of ride him. But they don't really have just like a second guy that's just a pure – closer to like a slot receiver type tight end, which I think would kind of help Kittle out a little bit.
Well,
yeah. I mean, and remember a couple years ago, they were in the mix for, what's his name, Austin Hooper. They were kind of sniffing around to get a pass catching tight end, but that's, to me, the injuries.
And he was expensive, as it turned out.
He was not going to be cheap, yeah. So, I mean, they back to the Trent Williams injury. To me, they're all in on this guy, right? They gave him a max contract. He's he's the best player probably pound for pound on their team when fully healthy, because he's arguably the best player in the league, like non-court, just true best player. Like, he's an unstoppable force. If they could just get him to like 90%, somehow, because he doesn't have to practice all week. Remember, he didn't practice all week leading up to Week 18 game, and no one thought it was that big a deal. It's like, fuck, he's fine. And then it was like, what?
Yeah.
Because the way he described Debo right before we jumped on, it made it seem like they're not worried at all. He didn't even mention the shoulder that he got crushed in the game, right? That he came. Maybe that wasn't even anything.
I think Debo sometimes just needs a breath or several breaths. He works so hard. But as it relates to Trent, I mean, they build their team around him as much as you can build your team around a left tackle, not just in the pass game and the run game at left tackle, but they ran 2 critical plays with him lined up as a fullback. The game, this is what you need to know about Trent. The game was on the line to end on 4th down and 1, and they tried to run a play behind him. It didn't work. It would have worked. I would imagine they have other plays off of that play now that the Rams have seen it, but why run anything else? Run behind Trent Williams. So I agree with you. I don't think that you can beat the Rams again without him.
I also think, and yeah, I mean, if those 2 guys and Ambry Thomas playing, to me, it's just more about, just gives them more bodies to throw out, and they're not one guy away from throwing Josh Norman out there. That to me is a big deal.
If something happens in the game, exactly.
Because a guy can go down in these games.
Well, they play 2 snaps with Josh Norman, and the first snap was almost 1 snap too many. I mean, you saw what Rodgers did. He went right at him. Now, part of that was he was going to go at Devontae if the ghost of Deion Sanders was on him, but he was going to Devontae.
It's like, I don't even know any of these other guys.
Yeah, he even said it after the game. Did you see how open who's the receiver over the middle? Lazard was on the double coverage throw to Devontae Adams.
What did Rodgers say that I should have thrown to him?
Just like, I I've made a mistake.
Did he miss him?
He was about to come wide open over the middle.
What pass was this? The one that he tried to get Devontae down the sideline?
Down the middle, where it was Hufanga in front of him.
When he was double covered. Yeah. Gotcha. So you're saying if he looks, that might have been a problem for the Niners?
It would have been a problem, yes, if he waits a millisecond longer. But, part of it probably they're getting pressure on him the whole game. So.
And here's the one thing I will say about football is I do believe, I think like the shitty teams, the Lions can play that game a lot in games, right? If we just would have looked the other way. Now, the difference is you just expect Rodgers to go to the right place with the ball. You could argue that game, he got a little too Devontae happy. Like the one thing I'll give Stafford and Brady is, they have their go-to guys, but they don't get consumed with one guy, right? You watch that Rams Bucks game. It's like they were spreading the love. It was like Rodgers when he dropped back. He was like, "Oh, please, fucking have 7 guys on 17."
It was weird.
It was weird. Maybe he just didn't. Did he not trust those guys in the frigid cold? I don't know. I mean, they've played.
Well, his trust with them in the past. I mean, I guess it's been more MVS has had. Was it MVS that had some of the dropsies last year, or was it Lazard? There have been questions about his trust in one of those two guys in the past. Be honest, I get the two of them confused.
I just know they're 83 and 13.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, 83 is Valdez-Scantling. He didn't play.
And I think the one, like, if you were in Aaron Rodgers' camp, the one knock you would say is like, we're playing a team, especially Tanyan went out. Like, our backup wide receivers are just not that good. You know, like, and when I say backup, I just mean our non-number one guy. Like, look at this team. Their third guy, Jawan Jennings, feels like he's better than those guys. And then Ayuk, I would die to have Ayuk on this team. Like, his one true knock is we didn't have the horses. Now, he did push for Randall Cobb, and they made the trade, and I didn't really notice him in that game.
He played a snap at the end of the game, as I saw. They showed him.
Randall?
Yeah, they showed him.
But, I mean, they got Randall Cobb for like a 7th round. It was nothing to acquire him. Yeah. But they would have been, I would say, a much more potent team if they had a true either sweet tight end. Now, Tanyan tore his ACL during the season, or just, I'm just trying to think of like a solid role guy as a wide receiver. You know, just a Lockett's probably better, but, you know, just another guy that's just viewed as a real player. You know, Cowboys got multiple guys. The Rams got multiple guys.
The Niners have multiple guys. Somebody who elevates your quarterback.
The Bucks have a ton of guys.
But that's part of having an expensive quarterback, right? And I guess Tom was always expensive, but Tom always took a little less. I mean, the Chiefs have multiple guys. You said Chiefs. It's just part of it is you got to elevate some of these guys too. Sometimes you're just not always going to have that type of team.
I mean, it turns out Gabriel Davis is, you know, basically, I don't know,
Jerry Rice. Yeah. I mean, was he a second rounder? I think he was.
Fourth.
It was a fourth rounder?
Fourth rounder.
By the way, speaking of fourth rounders, Talanoa Hufanga, was he a fourth or a fifth rounder?
Sixth.
I was just kind of looking at. He was a fifth rounder, pick 180, which he was a consensus All-American. Like, he is qualified for the College Football Hall of Fame, which most guys are not. That's how good of a college football career he had, right? He was defensive player of the year.
Beside like Sam Darnold, he is one of the standouts of the Clay Helton era. 15 was that his number in college? Do you remember?
Yeah,
I just remember whenever I watched USC Clay Helton games, 15 made every other tackle.
And it was like, well, but is this really going to translate to the NFL? You know, and not as a starter at this point, but as a playmaker, that was one of the things I think John Lynch said about him, right? And I think we probably talked about it. It's like he just has a propensity for making plays. Right place, right time, nose for the ball, football IQ, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, he's played a lot on defense, too. I mean, just because of injuries.
Yeah.
You know?
And then he got hurt. He was actually playing a little bit, and then he got hurt. He said he heard the ball hit the ground. That's how he knew where it was on the block punt.
I just can't get over how long the ball was in the air. It was in the air a long time.
Well, he said, like, it was hard to find. It was dark, and the snow's falling, so it's hard to find it. And you're right. You're looking like, when's it going to drop? Surely it can't still be up there. Pretty crazy.
I think the football gods were very kind to the Niners on where they placed that ball falling because it fell by 3 guys. And then the bounce landed right in the guy's hand. It wouldn't have been crazy if he just would have leaped on it, right? You couldn't have crushed him if he just leaped on it.
I mean, what was the fourth and what? It was a fourth down, obviously. 4th and 10.
Yeah, like 4th and 9. But I just mean like you just want to secure the fumble, right? I guess.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is
they can't pick it up and run it. So yeah,
they can if you once you touch it, they can pick it up and go with it.
But no, I guess when you look and no one's around.
Well, you don't know if anyone's around. To your point,
that's what I'm saying.
You
know what did Darius Slay say? We have suburban or city and urban or
country.
It's like urban and rural fumbles.
It was a city fumble and a country fumble.
Yeah, so if you're in the country, you do whatever you want. If you're in the city, fall in that fucking thing. You could argue in the way the game was, just secure the ball.
See, but what I'm saying is, it's 4th down. So even if they recover it at that spot, it's your ball.
Situational football. So he did the right thing. You got to know the situation.
Drop from the heavens. Yeah.
It did drop. It dropped from the Lambeau heavens. It was like Lombardi was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling Aaron Rodgers. Here we go.
He's not a true Packer.
Because I feel like Lombardi and Walsh are up there sitting each other, with a couple cocktails watching that game.
And Madden.
And John probably commentating it with Summer.
Madden's like, people don't really realize I love watching the 49ers. I lived by a lot of 49ers.
Yeah, he did way more of their games than the team that I coached.
Yeah, he did. He did.
Yeah, Madden was a big 49er fan. Let's call a spade a spade.
Here's this tweet from Akash. Per tick pick, the Niners-Rams NFC Championship game is the most expensive average ticket price ever for a championship game. For context, the next purchase price, the average purchase price, $400. I think it's gone. I think it's going up.
Yeah.
Right now, we're just looking at the tickets. Can you see this? Maybe I'll zoom it in a little.
I was in section 221 on the side on the bottom.
221. 221. How do I find 221? Oh, here we go. 221.
I think I was section 2, like row 18.
Well, here's row 19. 221, row 19. $2,032 each.
Is that with seller fees?
I don't think. Let's
check out and see what it says.
Okay. Oh, I gotta sign in. This is Vivid Seats. I gotta think that's not with seller fees, right? Usually they hide the fees until you start doing the checkout.
Well, like when I look at
SeatGeek, yeah.
When I look at SeatGeek, they include the seller fees. Not a cheap ticket, I'll tell you that. And here's the problem, like the nosebleed seats. If you're thinking about going to the nosebleeds, it's way up there, guy. Like I'd have a hard time spending $800 for a nosebleed. I mean, and I get it. Like I'm pro. If you're listening to this, you want to do it. But it is a long way away. Like the nosebleeds at Levi's aren't that bad. This place is fucking up there.
So here's at the top, 542. Row, let's find a deep row here, 19. So there we are, John. We are 3 rows from the top here, row 19. Can you see that?
That's high, man.
There you go. Row 19, $734 each.
That's a high getting price to sit at the top. What do you think the lowest bowl is a good seat? Because I think I think 2 is so much better than 1.
2, you mean section, like the 200s?
Yeah, where I sat in the 200s, I think is the best seat in the house.
Yeah, I have not been there, but I agree with you, having been to football games. There's such a thing as sitting too low.
Unless, do you think that's a good seat right there? I mean, it's not bad, but
I mean, yes, right? Short answer. But I'd rather sit here, a little higher.
What was more expensive, the 1 or the 2 right there?
I think 2,040. Well, those are about the same.
The one thing the section 2 gets you to is like this special bar
club.
Yeah,
so sometimes that's pretty good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. So it's easy to get food, it's easy to get drinks. There's not long lines. Like it's like you're paying a little extra for some access.
Like to me, this right here, this view, I don't think it's that bad. 200s behind the upright, $780.
The problem though is when they're going the other way, it's on the other side, on the other side of the 50, half the game, it's
pretty far.
Like obviously the 50-yard line is going to cost the most, but if you can just get to like the 20 or the 30 on the sides, to me it's such a better view than behind. Not that behind's the end all, the worst, but I think it's dramatically better.
The key is when like they coin flip. Which way you guys want to go? We want to go that way. Yes. We want to be in the end zone,
I just think the Rams are in major trouble. I mean, the 49ers people, I think it's...
Look at this seat.
I feel very, very confident that the 49ers fan base, like I'd say the top 1% of like the Giants or the Steelers or the Eagles, it's all super rich. But I bet if you just went the top like 15, 20% of the fan base, the 49ers are the highest household income when you just factor in the quantity of their fans and where they live in America. And I'm on several text threads. Now, some of these guys, have a lot of cash. But I haven't talked to one person who's interested in the game who gives a flying fuck what it costs. Now, obviously, if they cost $20,000 a seat or something, they wouldn't go. But $2,500 for good seats is not going to deter people. And we talked about it on the podcast yesterday, or the stream, or maybe 2 days ago. I don't even remember. Maybe when we were making videos, that someone DM'd me that had gone to the Packer game, and they were sitting like 17 rows up from just the bottom.
Yeah.
And said it cost $300 a ticket. Like the ticket prices out here,
which is cheap.
In a completely, but to them, I think to the Midwest, like that's a lot of money. Like the money here, we talk about, I mean, we're in the highest inflation in like 45 years. But in California, the inflation was already so fucking high that it's just the money, we're a little numb to costs, and we don't think about it the same way as some of these other states. It's not healthy. I mean, sometimes I think, like, am I just wasting money? Like, to get a $30 dinner?
Gas does that to you, too.
Is that just the cost of money? Is that just the cost of a salad? I don't know.
Yeah. I've been to some downtowns in some other states where you're like, okay, this is kind of the same price, right? Like a downtown, I think, a restaurant in a downtown, to me, in most places in a nice area, can kind of be about the same. But it's like what your casual, not even casual is not the right word, just what your regular day-to-day costs are higher.
Everything. It's why I love just going to In-N-Out sometimes and getting like multiple protein style doubles and just loading up on food, and it's like $13. The one right here in Pleasanton. It's like I can eat so much food. I can get multiple fries, multiple doubles with the lettuce, so I feel a little skinnier because I'm eating a shitload for like $14.99.
I don't go with the lettuce. I can't. It's slipping.
Well, I don't. I bring it home and eat it like a salad.
Key to the game, says Michael, make the Rams go to a silent count. Yeah, I don't think more Niner fans aren't buying tickets because of this, but I do think it will change a little bit, especially if they get there and they realize there's a lot of them again. I think their enthusiasm is going to have just a little extra spice to it than it would have had if the Rams hadn't tried to block. Because the one thing for the Rams, I understand why you do it, but Ticketmaster has no incentive to limit the number of people that can buy, where people can buy these tickets from. Because unlike the Rams, who sell the ticket was the face value ticket and then other people buy them up, the more expensive the ticket gets sold for on these third-party seller sites, the more money they make. They get fees. So Ticketmaster's like, wait a second, you want us to artificially deflate the price of these tickets? Why? In the words of the great Ricky Waters, John, for who, for what?
Yeah. To me, saying it, I don't blame them for saying it, and I think there's a decent chance that Stan mentioned something. Because can you imagine spending that much money and seeing, your stadium sold out on week 18?
Then he went to the Bucs game. He was at the Bucs game. He probably saw it in, a great environment, home crowd.
I could see him saying something to his president or whoever, and then they, do it. They say that. Now, maybe it's their idea, because sometimes presidents can be a little... But I would say the NFL, you don't have to worry about that. Like the Eagles, you wouldn't have to worry about it. The Giants, the Steelers, even Lambeau, like there's some Niner fans there, but it's 99% Packer fans. I think the Rams were really, really shook by week 18. I was there. I saw it. It was fucking loud as shit. It was crazy. It was nuts. And this, I think people were kind of going double whammy. It was a really big game, wanted to experience the place. This one, it's like, if they won the Super Bowl, you're like, I witnessed this. This would be, it's got a chance to be a historic moment. And I think the Rams fans just know these guys have a lot of cash. I don't think, like, if some teams, you wouldn't be able to afford it. And part of it is just the location. It's a really easy trip. You live in Sac, you live in the Bay Area. A lot of people live in Southern California. It's just easy. It's a 45-minute flight. It's a 4.5-hour drive. It's fucking cake.
There's a lot of people that live in L.A. where there was not a football team for a long time. I think that's an underrated part of this, right? L.A. didn't have a football team, an NFL team for a long time. So you just became a fan. When you live in an area without a team, you just become a fan of, like, the best teams. Well, the Raiders were gone and the Rams were gone. So I think there's just a lot of Niner fans who live in Los Angeles. They just live there.
Ton.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
Jeff
I,
Schwartz, who's from LA, thinks as a Niner fan, there's way more Niner fans there than Rams fans.
oh well, that I
Of course there are.
believe.
For
Yeah,
sure.
the Rams just showed up again, but they just showed up. It's going to take a while.
The stadium is really cool. Like
I
I
don't
think
blame.
that's part of it.
I don't blame anybody. I don't blame Stan. It takes a while to build up a look. This is not about that the Rams don't have fans. It's about the fact that the Niners are one of the biggest fan bases in American sports. It's not It's not to denigrate Rams fans. It's just they are a new. This version of the Rams is new, right? I don't know, but there's not a lot of people from St. Louis who are like, I still love the Rams. I'm going to LA for the game. I haven't heard one of those people.
Aren't they suing his ass?
Yeah, like they didn't carry any of those people over.
Didn't Joe Buck go on a Twitter rant when they left? Like, weren't they pissed in St. Louis? I don't think it really went well.
No. So those people are gone.
I think some of the Charger fans have the same. I would say the only team that moved of that group was like Raider fans, like, whatever, we were going to fucking move. I think a lot of Charger fans are like, fuck you. And I think definitely the Rams fans, even though the irony is, I always said this, St. Louis, you stole the team. Like you stole something and then you get to claim it and then you get mad when it gets stolen away. Like
but they felt like they were like wronged. But yeah, I agree. I don't.
Why? Because Stan was from Missouri and said, "Fuck you, I'm taking this team."
No, because whatever the rules were among I haven't checked up on that story in a while, but there were some
broke leases and stuff.
Agreements, right? But there was what's the saying? No honor among thieves, like whatever. But it's going to take them a while to build it up, and they're trying to do it against the Niners. Fans consistently invade Cowboy Stadium, which is the biggest fan base in American sports. So, that's what you're dealing with. It's just I don't blame anybody for it. I have to think that after that week, I mean, Stan Kroenke doesn't like it. I have to think that McVay was furious, absolutely furious. And I would imagine McVay went to somebody in the business office you can't yell at Stan, not yelling at anybody, but like, guys, we got to do something here. My football team is at a disadvantage. And it was kind of embarrassing for him because they were caught unprepared for that situation. And I don't blame Sean for it, but they were unprepared to have to go to a silent count in that game. I think it was probably I know it had to be infuriating. It probably was a little embarrassing for him just because he wasn't ready for it. And as I said, I don't blame him for that, but it is. He's trying to win a championship. I think he had to be furious. My guess is he was furious. And at who? I don't even know who he's mad at, but I would be mad too.
You're mad at yourself. You're just mad at things that are out of your control. You're just pissed off. They were rattled by it for sure. And it's coming again, but I would say this time they're going to have a silent count ready. That's the thing. Like, because as these next couple of days is going to be clear. Like, yeah, Ticketmaster, like he's going to get word of like, oh, so did we limit the amount? No, he's like, no, we actually couldn't. So all these tickets. Like,
well, I would imagine by where are they coming from? It's like, we'll just have to wait and see.
Or by Thursday or Friday, there's a report like 40% of the tickets have been bought by counties, north of Bakersfield or something like that. You're like, oh fuck. Like, to me, that there's something coming because this is going to be one of the bigger stories I think talked about down there beside the actual football is like who's buying these tickets, which usually I hate these type stories. I find this one pretty fascinating.
Why is it different?
I don't know. Part of it, I experienced it.
Is it because players' wives got involved?
Well, I love the business aspect of it because the price points. I love it. It's such an enormous price point. Like I love to see like who's got fuck you money here, and what of their fan base, like the season ticket holder. Let's just say I was a Rams fan. It's like shit. In Biden's America, everything's a lot more expensive. If I can get an extra $4 or $5K, take my seats. That's the other thing. I don't blame someone. It's a lot of people are like Middlekauff. If you're gonna go to the game, like I'm not even. I wouldn't buy $4,000 tickets or whatever. But this one, I just kind of want to take in at home, and it's way easier to do what we do, just being at home. Like we're internet people, and the internet is just way easier to access when you're sitting at your desk. But like I understand why these people sell the tickets, and I also understand like there were a lot of people that went to that game week 18. And every single person told their friend it was one of the most incredible experiences of their life.
Yeah.
So part of it is like, now this has a chance. That's the way sports work. It's like I bought crypto after all these people made millions of crypto. I haven't made millions on crypto. So it's one of those that I think there's going to be a lot of FOMO type people that who knows, like this could either way. I mean, the Niners could blow them out, but if you spent $3,000 on a ticket, let's say, you are really hoping for, if you're a Niner fan, a Niners win, but you also like, can we get some epic moments? It's not just like you want to win. You want to be part of something that you can a couple people I was DMing with about the Packers game, like I told them, that game, like when you get to be a part of one of those type games, right, like the Buckner game or whatever, you just tell people for the rest of your life, like I was at the game where we upset the Packers fucking 13-10. Like you say that till you die. Think about the people that got to attend, like, you know, some of the legendary Super Bowls over the years, or the legendary, like,
I was thinking of concerts.
Yeah, or a Clemson fan. But the problem with a concert is not everyone else gets to watch it. That's the thing about sports that are on TV. Like, other people like, damn, you were there? I was watching that game, right?
Yeah, I think about, like, the, you know, famous concerts, like the Beatles' last performance, you know, last concert was at Candlestick. Right, things like that. But
like
no, you're right, it's not on TV. Yeah,
I mean,
but you're right, that's different than, like,
there's a smaller group of that though than the games.
If you're at the David Tyree catch game, right?
What if you're like, hey man, 2019 I was on hole 18 when Tiger made the putt.
Yeah.
It's like you got to be like the tour championship. It's just something that's going to be that moment and that vibe there. You just don't forget like pretty seminal moments in a sport, in a league, right? And the thing is though, again, what makes it so cool is you have no fucking clue if it's coming. Like one of these games this weekend could easily be, the final score could be 40-10. A quarterback shatters his ankle on the first series. You just never know. Or both of them could be legendary games. We didn't
or like
know
think about your game. The Niner Rams game the first time that you were at was bad.
Well, I know the dude left
until it got good.
Dude walked out, and I was like, "See, I'd leave too."
Where's that? We got to find that. You got to find that. Track that guy down. Get him on the show.
Solo mission by that guy, and he was.
I mean, is he telling everybody like, "Oh my god, what a game! What a game!"
Well, wasn't the famous story with the Ray Allen shot in Miami that they closed the doors and wouldn't let people back in? Everyone's
people
like,
left,
"Let us in overtime." How many of those people were like, "God, it was incredible, man. He hit the shot. I was like 7 feet over."
I know.
Or is it a better story to tell someone that you left?
Oh, it's not. Well, it depends. I mean, for that person, it's kind of entertaining. I would rather hear a person who stayed tell me the story about what it was like to be there, as opposed to the horror of having missed out on it all. But, you know, I think it's also a testament to Stan that he built this stadium, that the stadium in and of itself is an attraction because it's not just Niner fans. The other thing is how many people from LA are going not because they are Ram fans, but because like I'm Jay-Z. I want to go check it out. Like, I don't think Jay-Z's clapping together the thunder sticks there on third down, thunder. Yeah. Like, you're just watching. So you get a lot of that too. So you get like some net negatives, right? You get some people who are cheering against you. And then you get people that are just not cheering at all, but they're there because it's a cool thing to see. So they're not hurting you when you've got the ball, but they're sure as hell not helping you when your defense is on the field either.
That's the one thing with the LA crowd is all their famous people are from, for the most part, other cities. Like, there's a decent chance Jay-Z, I don't know if he's a huge football fan or not, but is a diehard Giants fan. Like, that's his squad. Or the Jets. Right. Or maybe he grew up, you know, he's probably a little older than us. What if he was just like, loved the Steelers, you know, or the Cowboy? You're just like, he has a squad, right? All these guys that live there, like from Ohio, like I'm a big Browns fan. You hear some of these actors sometimes that are big sports fans. I always find it cool. Like, when that dude from Billions was talking, he's like, yeah, I'm from fucking Brooklyn. I grew up or Atlanta. I grew up a diehard Niners guy. You just end up liking teams when you're kids sometimes that are just a little random. And then if you stay a sports fan, you just carry that team forever. How many, I know people that are just like that. Like I love the Miami Dolphins because I loved him. Anthony Slater, right? Anthony Slater's not from Miami, but he grew up a Miami Dolphins fan, probably because he loved Dan Marino when he was a kid.
Mark Wahlberg left the Falcons-Patriots Super Bowl early. The family was watching the game in a suite when the Patriots were getting pounded. Wahlberg's second son, 8-year-old Brendan, didn't handle it well. He was spitting out F-bombs and going crazy. It was bad.
The kid?
Wahlberg. The kid. He was lying down on the carpet. He was very upset. His wife wanted to stay, but Wahlberg wasn't having it and left with his son. Asked if his son learned a valuable lesson, Wahlberg said no. He's a very sore loser.
That's
Brutal.
incredible, man.
Hold that against your kid for the rest of his life. God.
Someone I saw this in the chat. I missed this today.
Huh.
It's a little story that we could probably do a little cut on. Jeremy Fowler had a tweet from earlier today, 7 hours ago, about D'Amico Ryans that if you look up and bring to the screen, I'm pretty sure we could do 5 minutes on pretty easily about a team he's going to interview with beside the Minnesota Vikings. It's a team that I think we know pretty well. They're going through a coaching search right now. It's going to be interesting where they go, but this one is kind of got my juices flowing when I saw that this interview was going down.
Stand by. Here we go. In 3, 2. There it is. Jeremy Fowler. The Niners in the thick of the NFC title game prep. Defensive coordinator D'Amico Ryans will interview with the Raiders after Sunday's game against the Rams. That was the working expectations after his interview with the Vikings. Las Vegas not in a major rush.
What's the rush?
Harbaugh's got signing day to worry about. They'll deal with him later, apparently.
You know, I would imagine now it seems like with this tweet, this was in motion before the performance over the weekend. But if I was running a coaching search, I would interview D'Amico Ryans. And I give the Raiders credit on this one. Like, to me, he's a no-brainer to talk to. When I see guys like Jonathan Gannon, the first-year defensive coordinator with the Eagles, who got worked this year. Now, one thing, my buddies in Philly, he's a great guy, good leader, all that. And I think he's very, very impressive. You know, but it'd be like Robert Saleh the first couple of years. Like, you like the guy, but his defense is shit. Like, the Eagles' defense was terrible. D'Amico Ryans' defense is literally better than the guy who just was the number one coaching candidate on the market and could have got like 5 jobs and ended up getting a job. And now his defense is awesome. His resume, I tweeted this out yesterday. When I was in Philly, we traded for D'Amico Ryans, and he was coming off a torn Achilles. One of the things that we kept talking about with D'Amico Ryans, because like, well, is he ever going to get his explosive speed back? It was like his character, his football IQ, and his leadership were like the word on him was like, this guy, man, will help change your building. You want this guy around your other players. He was talked about like you would talk about quarterbacks, right? Peyton Manning or Josh Allen, just like all that stuff. And I also said every executive and every coach that was around him as a player, there is no doubt in my mind. They're like, yeah, not shocked. D'Amico's a sweet coach. Even though he's not, like, he's different than Saleh. He's not loud, kind of rah-rah. And if you notice him you don't see him going nuts on the sideline, even though it doesn't feel like they show him that
Camera's never on him. It was on Saleh all the time.
Well, because I do think Robert played to the cameras. I don't think he was trying to. I'm just saying that's just him, right? He was just, he's got kind of, I think McVay's the same way. They can't help themselves. D'Amico, and just because you're not a rah-rah guy doesn't mean, I think this guy's fucking good, man. And the Niners, I don't want to say are going to be lucky to not lose him this year, but I still feel they'll probably keep him this year. Feels like he's a 2-and-done guy.
Yeah, I think he rightfully gets a lot of credit for how good they've been defensively. Everybody knows the story because it's been a story all year long that their secondary has been
Safeties haven't been terrible. The corners have been.
Yeah, the cornerbacks. The way they've created pass rush, Chris Kasarik gets a lot of credit for that too. But the way they've created pass rush, I think he gets a lot of credit for. And then again, he's not starting at square one because he is D'Amico Ryans, and he has a fantastic reputation as a leader, as a player, all that stuff. I saw that, they interviewed Jared Mayo as well. Like, I think these would be surprising hires for the Raiders, to your point. But what will not be surprising is D'Amico Ryans becoming a head coach.
Wouldn't you say Mayo would kind of be similar to D'Amico? Former middle linebacker, played for Belichick the whole time, high character guy, clearly good coach. A little more under the radar than D'Amico. I feel like D'Amico just play longer, right?
Also worked for Bill, which isn't necessarily always a plus. And Bill, D'Amico, we know is in charge of the defense for the 49ers, right?
Yes. And Kyle had an opportunity, right, when Robert left to anoint a lot of people, right? I bet he could have hit the market and hired some people. He chose this guy, which to me doesn't say nothing, right? He believed in this guy, was ready, and he's been proven right. Kyle,
Yeah.
in a short time, you would say, has been pretty good with the Niners of identifying assistant coaches.
Yes. Can he keep doing it? I mean, the good ones do.
Well, he's going to
Right.
lose this guy, right? I mean,
Is he going to lose him and Mike McDaniel?
What % chance would you say he's gone this year? Does it feel in your gut?
I think it's low. I think it's probably a year too early. So I would say
20?
20, yeah, 15%, 20%. You never know. There's a lot of openings. And I think openings that hire GMs, those places might be more inclined to hire coaches who are kind of in Mayo's shoes, in D'Amico's shoes. Like Josh McDaniels has been in this cycle long enough that he has the power to say, I'm not coming unless I'm in charge of players. Right.
Or he's like a package deal with that. Albert Breer wrote the Ziegler guy that the Raiders interviewed. He was going to be his GM if he went to Cleveland a couple years ago. Like it kind of be like they'd come together.
Gotcha.
It'd be like that type deal.
Yeah.
Where you're right. I think, maybe a younger GM. Look at last year, right? When the dude that hired Dan Campbell, the guy, and Arthur Smith, both kind of younger guys that kind of come in together. You don't try to hire like, Ron Rivera 2.0. Like that's just guys going to want a little more juice, right? Those guys that want a, second opportunity that have something. Then it actually doesn't really feel like there's a Ron Rivera in this class, does it? Dan Quinn a little bit, but even I wouldn't put him. Ron never.
Do you have to be a defensive guy to be in Ron Rivera's class? Is that what you?
I just meant like a CEO, kind of the older, gruffer,
Yeah, I mean Zimmer's a defensive coordinator, right?
I think he's unhireable, doesn't it?
As a head coach.
As a head coach, yeah.
I think that'd be one thing for D'Amico to differentiate is like, I am a defensive play caller. I am a defense, like 1 year is not enough time probably for defensive guys to become gurus. But that's one thing with Robert Saleh is he's the CEO type. And that's not really, are you hiring D'Amico Ryans to be the CEO type? Like, I want you to call defense. I've been given the stat every week. Somebody just mentioned in the chat, 16 of 19 quarterbacks have now been held under their passing yard average when they play the 49ers. And when I watch like the Bills-Chiefs game, the Chiefs are demoralizing the number one defense in the NFL and Sean McDermott. So even if you're really good at defense, if you happen to run into one of these guys, you're still at a disadvantage. But I want to know you're at least really good at defense, so I've got a shot. Because if I'm not hiring an elite offensive coach, which, I mean, we'll see how history remembers Zach Taylor, but at this rate, he's not getting fired anytime soon in Cincinnati. All that's left is offensive coaches, right? So you got to be, I think if I'm hiring a defensive coach, I got to be really, really sure that you're the man. Now, here's the thing. Could I hire D'Amico and kind of like the Jets? No, he's bringing Mike McDaniel with him. And so we're going to have a good, solid core here for at least a year. I'm going to get Mike McDaniel as the offensive coordinator. I'm going to get D'Amico, kind of running the program and as the defensive coordinator. Maybe he can sell that. Whereas if you wait a year, does Mike McDaniel become somebody else's OC and you're not getting D'Amico and Mike McDaniel? Like in some ways, it would make sense for D'Amico to try and get that job now before Mike McDaniel leaves to go be somebody else's coordinator.
One thing D'Amico will have, he played in Houston under Kyle, so he knows all the Shanahan guys. He then was traded to Andy Reid's team with Doug Peterson, Matt Nagy, and some of those guys. So who knows? Like, I mean, he could have connections of like, damn, this guy can bring other people with experience. That's where the playing career separates to me and why age is so irrelevant. Like, you can't act like he's just been coaching now 5 years. Or same with Mayo. No, they played as the starting middle linebackers, and you would say that's kind of like a coach on the field, right? What they're asked to do in the game plan, especially you're the team captain. Like, that's not nothing.
Yeah, Vrabel.
Like, Bubba Ventrone is a good example, actually, as a special teams coordinator. It was clear he was just, I just watched him really closely 1 year when he was with the Niners, or maybe it was the 2 years. He was also with New England. Like, he was like the special teams captain of the Patriots and the Harbaugh teams. Shocking he became a special teams coordinator in like 2 years, right? He doesn't need to like work his way up, quality control, pick up guys at the airport. Like, no, it's like, no, this guy's been part of leading meetings. Because wouldn't you say most coaches worth their salt? Like, their players play a role in meetings as well. Like, you don't want to be the only voice. Your team captains talk a lot. And I wonder the more I'm talking it out, like, what if D'Amico just interviews really well? I don't think it would be out of the realm of possibility to be one and done because you get a lot of credit. This young, he's smart, he's a player, was with Kyle. Like, you'd be a pretty easy sell.
Would you not hesitate at all to make him CEO and not defensive play caller?
Yeah, I mean, you have to call. Same if like Brian Daboll. Let's say I'm John Moore and I just hired Joe Shane. He's like, Brian Daboll's my guy. We'll just do a formality, interview him. If Brian Daboll was like, I'm going to hire someone to call offensive plays, I'd be like, whoa, man. I'm hiring Brian Daboll to be the offensive coordinator. I want you to be the bald version of those two guys in the NFC Championship game. I'm watching your teams call plays because I don't get with the Jets. Like, Robert, your defenses were good. I want you to call defenses and also be a head coach like the guy you just worked for. I can't comprehend, these coaches that don't call plays, that's really what they made up, that are young, that are, you're 43 years old. Like, you're in your prime. Let's call some plays if you want to graduate out of it. But I'm with you with D'Amico. Like, to me, part of the conversation with D'Amico is, if I'm Mark Davis, is you're going to be my defensive coordinator and the head coach. Say what you want about Gruden. Their offense wasn't terrible, right? I mean, it was an advantage for John. Like, you could say his leading the team was a little questionable.
Look, I would love for them to get Harbaugh. I think that'd be fascinating. I don't think it'd be the worst thing in the world. I wonder if Mark does some of these interviews and, because I think Mark and Harbaugh talk directly and just goes, oh, this is just kind of a calm, normal, Jim is a proven winner, but there is another life you can lead if you hire a guy like D'Amico Ryans, which is just a solid NFL building, and maybe it could be great. I don't know, but he's just gonna, give you straight answers when you ask him straight questions.
I had the thought
that might be nice for Mark.
I think I had the thought Sunday morning. Are there people already in the Alabama offices that go, if Saban ever leaves, like, let's keep an eye on this guy,
D'Amico?
Like, we'll offer him $12 million. Like, if he just keeps having a great career.
Yeah, it's hard though. I mean, if he has a great NFL career, you don't leave that to go be a college coach.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying, but I mean, Nick did once upon a time. Like, you could just be on a 500 team. I offer you $13 million a year. Come home, baby.
But it was going poorly for Nick.
Yeah, I mean, he was 500.
But it was not going well.
Nick. I mean, if you're going to the playoffs every year, you won't leave. But the likelihood that he's just going to be a playoff coach would be under 50%, right? He might just be in a solid team that's winning 7-8 games, competing.
Yeah.
Alabama will pay more than the NFL.
Yeah.
Right? If things are going poorly. I just had that thought. Like, if I was in their building, I'd be like, on our short list of replace, let's throw his name down on there.
Let's at least talk to him.
He didn't play for Nick, but I think he's actually I think he's from Alabama too.
He could have.
He's from Alabama.
Feels like a Nick type.
He rose, man. Fast. Quick. But again, he's been, I think he'd tell you, I've been in the NFL for 15 years. Well, I got here in 2006.
Yeah. I also think, to go back to like the Lock and 4 article about Shanahan, it's easy to look at Kyle, especially when he promotes from within, look at some of his coaches and wonder if he just hires people he likes. But the people he likes can help. The people he likes turn out to be pretty good. The LaFleurs, McDaniel, McVay, Saleh. So far, the people he likes are good coaches.
Seems like Welker's doing a pretty good job with
Welker. I mean, the way so the Shanahan stamp of approval, I would say at this point, worth something. And we felt, you and I talked about this when he promoted D'Amico. Like, it's pretty impressive just to be promoted from within. I think maybe there was a time when if Vic Fangio wasn't the head coach of the Broncos, maybe he would have been Kyle's defensive coordinator. But you would say Kyle now twice has hired defensive coordinators that were not on at least like regular just regular people's radar as defensive coordinators. And twice he's nailed it. Nailed it.
Here's what I will say also about D'Amico. I think I said on the podcast on Saturday night on our live stream and podcast that my guess was he had made $50 million. Someone shot me a DM. They're like, well, once you said that, I looked it up. It was $96 million is what D'Amico made in his career. $96 million.
Wow.
And he played in Houston for a long time, so no state income tax. So he made some cash. Looking at his bio, Mayo, when Belichick hired him, he just made Mayo the inside linebacker coach. Like, he just went right to a position. And when you go to a position in the NFL, you immediately make like $500,000 minimum, right? That's what the going rate is. Positions. D'Amico started as a defensive quality control coach. Like that's. I don't know how many guys with $96 million at 34 years old would just be like, yeah, I'll break down film for the guys.
What do those guys make? 50,000, 60,000?
No, I mean, I think it's probably
70?
No, it's probably
180.
Yeah, it's
Oh, you think it's less?
120, 140, something like that. I mean, that's what I think. In like Philly might have to pay you 110. San Francisco probably pay you 140, right? Depending on where you live. But it's a 6-figure job. But it's a 6-figure job like. You get at Google, it's the shittiest job in the building.
The other quality control guy's like, hey, man, we're looking for a roommate. D'Amico, you interested? He's like, nah.
I'm good. I'm actually joining the country club with Robert Los Gatos.
Do you guys need a room? I got 8. Yeah, that's very interesting.
That's not nothing that he started like that. I mean, he's an impressive guy. $96 million. Would you go be like a radio producer? To like, I just want to get in.
Oh, well, no.
I'm just trying to use a parallel. I mean, it's just it's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I guess Welker kind of did it. I mean, I do think Welker started as a position, but is he? I mean, I know we've talked about him too. I
don't know. I mean, you have to think that there's a good chance that he is a good he's an offensive coordinator candidate. Is that what you're getting at?
Well, let's say this. McDaniels leaves. McDaniel. Yeah, I would imagine that Wes would be in position to potentially take that role.
I think we're getting in a short amount of time. So far, it's probably too soon to call it a pattern. Time will tell, but it's very Belichickian, right? It's Saban-esque. You promote from within. These people know what your system is. You speak the same language. You use people's time as a lower level assistant to train them in what you want, and then they're ready to roll when they get to you. So we'll see, but I think it'd be very interesting. What would Kyle do next? But you'd have to think it would be, from within.
With OC or DC?
Both.
He hired, I noticed him at practice. I think he's technically the linebacker coach now with D'Amico being the DC, is James Belcher.
Yeah,
who was on Arian's staff, and I think once Todd Bowles got hired, took over for him. So I give you credit when you do a move like that. When you get a guy who's coordinated, who's been at a high-level staff, and might just be out of work, and you bring him on. And I think last year maybe he was a defensive assistant, and then once the solid thing happened, you just have a guy to replenish, and then you're able to teach him over the years, kind of your guy, right? And that's just. Ideally, you just like Harbaugh's staff. They never lost anybody. So you just have the same guys. That's not the case. Like he has to, that's the one thing with Kyle. You're going to have to do moves like this. And the more you have success, aren't guys like that going to want a part of you? Like, can you go to the New York Giants staff, everyone that just got fired, the Chicago Bears, and just take their best assistant and be like, come with me. You're a job away from being immediately put in a spot or becoming a coordinator with me. Like you can kind of do stuff like that. And I think it's very difficult to do what Bill does because Bill, you would say, doesn't really do that. Every once in a while, like Bielema, right? But for the most part, it's like he breeds you from a young age, and then you just work your way up. Kyle's done that, but he's just literally lost them all potentially within a pretty short period of time.
Yeah, promoting guys is dangerous, especially if you're going to win because they're going to get jobs. It's one thing for guys to get jobs after 3 years. To get after 1 or 2 years, I think it makes you more likely to promote from within.
Wouldn't you imagine that if you're like a young offensive guy in football, you're just like a 25-year-old quarterback assistant, let's just say at like a Division I program. You're like, your dream is, because I remember being at Fresno State, I was like, I want to work in the NFL. I want to work in the NFL. Wouldn't you do everything humanly possible to get just somehow in front of McVay or Kyle and be like, get me in the ground floor. I want to learn everything from you. I'll do you pay me $20,000. Kyle, you might have to pay me a little more because I would live in a tent. But same with you, McVay. You'd have to. I don't know what the going rate is for the lowest. It's hard out here, but just let me in. I'll be the lowest guy on the totem pole. Andy Reid had people begging him for years, and look how it turned out for them all. All of them became millionaires. Every fucking single one became.
I say the same thing about if I'm a player's agent in the draft. I want to be on your team. I want my guy on your roster. And I will tell you the other teams that like my guy to help you make sure that you get me.
Do you think Mahomes' agent's glad they did that to Andy?
Yes. I mean, what a marriage. So yeah, I think we talk about player development, we talk about coach retention. Coach development is a huge deal too. Coach development is a massive deal. Do you take the time to develop your coaches? And give them the tools. I mean, ultimately, if you give them enough of the tools, then they can leave. But if you're confident that you can coach the next guy up and the next guy up and the next guy up, then I mean that's a cheat code, John.
I'll give you an Andy example. A couple years ago, they changed over their defensive staff and they hired Spags. Andy went to Kentucky and he hired their linebacker coach. I remember talking to him at the combine. He's like, I heard good things, and I think Josh Allen was coming out. Maybe this guy was just kind of generating some buzz, and Andy hired him. Took him to linebacker coach Kentucky, took him to the Chiefs, linebacker coach. That guy just became Brian Kelly's defensive coordinator at LSU, and I think he might be working through the end of the Chiefs season, but do you know the best move that guy ever made? And it wasn't a bad move staying at Kentucky, going to Andy Reid's staff. I would guess that Brian Kelly just paid him well over $1 million, right? To be his coordinator.
I would guess he didn't have to sleep on that decision for 3 weeks.
And if, let's say, the LSU defense is good for a year or two, is that guy a head coach in the Power 5? I'd say probably. What have you done? Well, I helped Stoops turn that thing around. I went with Andy Reid, turned the defense around. Now I've been with Brian Kelly. Boom, head coach. Does Brian Kelly go after this guy?
Boom, boom, 40 millionaire, 60 millionaire.
Yeah. Haberman, where'd you go? Where'd guy go? I don't know. Do the show solo? He must have hit X. See if he comes back. Device connected.
It's like the third time I've done that where the mouse is hovering over the button that lets me leave the room and I just hit it by accident. I just leave. That's what happened there. Sorry.
This is a good one.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
I just saw this tweet, John. Actually, I got to reshare this. Hold on. I don't know. Can you see this?
Yeah.
Career record in fourth quarter comeback, game-winning drive opportunities. Tom Brady, 51 and 49. In fourth quarter opportunities, in fourth quarter comeback and game-winning drive opportunities, 68 and 51. That's 57%. Second on the list, Jimmy Garoppolo, 11 wins, 10 losses, 52%. Fourth quarter comeback, game-winning drive opportunities. Mahomes is third. Lamar Jackson, Roethlisberger. John, all the legends.
Do you give Jimmy Garoppolo a comeback win in that game? I guess he did help. Did he lead him on the game-winning drive, or they handed it off? They handed it off. Did he have a throw on the final drive?
Sorry, I was reading some comments. Say that again.
Did Jimmy Garoppolo have a throw on the drive that led to the Robbie Gould field goal? Thinking off the top of my head.
Yeah, didn't he hit Kittle over the middle?
Oh, yeah, on the slant route. Okay. Yeah. They hit that, then runs.
I thought there was another throw. Oh, I've noticed this. My last 5 minutes of a Niner game, I don't take notes anymore because I take notes of every play through the whole game. I thought there was a Debo catch. What was the Debo out of the backfield? Angle route to Debo. Do you remember that play?
Not really.
Yeah. I've noticed? Who Kyle trusts a lot? The Niners. I mean, Juszczyk was the guy who got the carry on the last carry of the game before they set up the field goal. Was Juice. So the other day, did we talk about this? We did not talk about this.
No.
I posted, you know what I'm going to say? I posted, okay, so we talked about half of it because we talked about Juszczyk's Harvard, some of his box scores. He 3 touchdowns and 180 yards against Princeton.
Didn't then Tron Carter forward you some information about? I saw you guys go on a tweet thread about some other.
Tron Carter forwarded, and then somebody else retweeted, and I started getting DMs from I got four DMs from guys who were I'm the next Juice. they all look a certain way,
Where'd they play?
I couldn't figure out. One was Scott Molinoff's school. One of them.
Oh, Lipscomb.
he tagged one of the guys. There were a couple guys that were high school
He
guys.
sent me an email. He works for Trent Dilfer at Lipscomb. Scott Malinoff is an assistant coach on Trent Dilfer's
the
staff,
head coach at Lipscomb.
the high school. And Dilfer's the head coach in Nashville, right? Do you know that?
Okay.
High school. You remember?
Okay.
He shook Phil.
I thought
Dawson's
Lipscomb was a college.
Maybe it's he is coaching at the high school that's basically like Bishop Gorman in Vegas in Nashville.
John Kitna's kid? Was that
It
who
was
it was?
definitely Phil Dawson's kid.
Phil
remember?
Dawson's kid.
And then he claimed that like him and Phil have been buddies for 25 years and he loves the kid, but he shook him.
Yeah, that's fine. I was fine with it. But anyway, the point was I got a lot of people out there trying to be the next Kyle Juszczyk.
It's just going to be hard to get used in college, right? Trent probably uses that position in high school, but does that kid get that opportunity in the pros?
I was looking at some DVOA numbers, John. It's Jimmy's better than Josh Allen in several categories. Just FYI.
Can I read you a quick Tom Brady on his Let's Go podcast?
Yeah.
About his wife, family, and football. It pains her to see me get hit out there, and she deserves what she needs from me as a husband, and my kids deserve what they need from me as a dad. I got news for you. I feel like Tom Brady's going to retire.
So that was my reaction after the game, too. The one thing I'll say, the more I think about, did you see when they took the shot of Tom's family in the booth?
When they came back and they were throwing a party?
It was Giselle, and then they all realized they were on camera, and you saw his niece who like plays softball at UCLA and his kids, everyone's waving. Like, when I saw it live, I thought, man, I wonder if this is his last game. But then I started thinking, like, they were down big at that point in time. If they knew it was Tom's last game, he's getting his ass kicked, would they be a little more somber in the booth if it was really Tom's last game?
They're not as emotionally invested. I mean,
no, I know. I don't know. I'm just trying to find a clue.
Did you see when he I think it was when he hit Mike Evans. They showed that booth. They were going berserk.
Yeah.
They were going nuts. So I just wonder, he's 45. He's like, I got that extra Super Bowl. Bill and Mac ain't getting me. He'll never be even. I won. It's got to be pretty exhausting to I don't know if I can just eat lettuce wraps the rest of my life.
Well, and you start your kids every year. You're like, one more year. Well, now your kid is on another level of school and you've missed a bunch of stuff. It's definitely possible. I would not surprise me.
Because he doesn't really go out. It's very respectable the way that game went, right? It's like, well, Tom went down fighting like a champ, right? He led him on a comeback to 20. Well, I mean, part of it was fumbles, but
yeah, if you're going to go out not winning a Super Bowl, I think you can go out like that. I agree. I also think I thought watching the game, he kind of missed Belichick.
Bruce that into that game? Like, what was his deal?
Sometimes you get reminded that Bruce's teams are
little helter-skelter.
Bruce with his penalty 2 weeks ago, whatever, not a big deal to me, but Bruce's teams are a little undisciplined sometimes. And at least less buttoned down is probably a better way to put it. Now, one of those unsportsmanlikes they got was Tom yelling at the referee, but as he bled from his mouth.
That was pretty funny when he was just berating.
Because he was right. The helmet hit him right in the chin.
He was pissed. But
I understand why these guys
Sue got one like the first play of the game. To me, that's just like, I get the rule. This is horse shit. Like, are we kidding me?
Did Sue happen for the Stafford play? Where Stafford tried to kick him and not kick him, but kind of.
It just felt like Sue was going to start the game by talking a little shit. Like, we're going to fuck you up today type deal. And just kept talking and they threw it for taunting.
Yeah.
Sue's a free agent. I mean, I'd be interested in him.
I mean, is he getting cheaper or more expensive?
No, he's like, you just give him like the 8.5 type deals.
The Man in the Arena final episode doesn't come out till the spring. Is that true? How does that work?
Oh, he'll announce it then. Well, the team would have to know, I think. Because even Rodgers, I watched his press conference just because I wanted to see that one quote. He's like, yeah, I mean, we're going to figure this out before free agency. I mean, whether he means that or not, but the way he said it is like, I have to. We got to figure this out before, right? If I'm going to stay, they got to build the team around me. If I'm going to get a trade, it's like, well, Aaron, you came torpedoing out of nowhere last year, day of the draft. I mean, I'd hope. Like you can't just like Brady's going to figure it out like April 1st. Like they kind of got to know. And Tom knows that.
Yes, Tom knows that.
Because he just went through it.
Also, Tom is either going to start dedicating his life to football again starting today or not.
Well, Breer just tweeted and he's right. Like, he's like, I don't think Brady's made any hard and fast decision on his future. That said, he's never really said comments like that before. Like he's been pretty adamant. Like, I ain't going anywhere. 45. And I was like, well, I am 45. I think the last couple of weeks he's kind of got peppered. He's like, fuck, this sucks.
Yeah, I have felt like, well, but he's not 40. He's 44.
Doesn't he turn 45 this year?
August.
So he'd be 45 in the season.
Yes, we'd have to play one more year to play at 45.
I wonder if 44, which is pretty incredible accomplishment.
I wonder if at any point he's like, walking down the hallway where he's got all the trophies. And if you just lose like 1% of your desire for that, like I've dedicated my life to this. I've changed the last 20 years of my life for this. It's been worth it. But in the end, I go through it. I've already proven to myself over and over again I can do it. I've proven to everybody else I can do it. What else do I really have to prove? And after I win, I could see there just being a little bit of an empty feeling when it's done. Like the chase is what it's about. You win the championship, you accomplish the goal, and then you get a ring, and what do you do with it? You put it in a box somewhere and you never look at it. What you did, whether the championship comes or not. Like, he has been through another year. He's not going to win the MVP, but he was arguably the MVP, right? Even in a year, I'm just saying it's not a black and white win or lose, zero sum. Like, he proved something this year, even though he didn't win a championship. And if he comes back next year, he'll prove it again, even if he doesn't win a championship. He's already the GOAT.
Well, he's already had a season at 43 and 44 that are unlike anything we've ever seen and probably will ever see again.
I don't want him to retire because I want to see how long this can keep going. Who else is going to ever put themselves in this position?
Do you think Aaron Rodgers is playing at 43, 44 years old?
How old is Aaron right now?
37.
No.
Russell Wilson?
He might not be playing at 39. No. Russ is already slowing down. Yeah, Russ already physically is.
Rodgers would be the only guy that's kind of. I said over under 3.5 years left for Rodgers.
Under.
He just won back-to-back MVPs.
I know. You think over 3.5? You think he's going to play 4 more years?
He's made so much money. I mean, so much money. I think Brady, because they were winning so much, got addicted to it. And just like, this is fucking.
Well, how could maybe you're right? Like the winnings, how do I stop?
Yeah, you can't. I wonder if Rodgers like this sucks. Did you watch just see some of it? Like they were shell shocked.
I watched the LaFleur afterwards. Yeah,
Aikman, his comment today with Russillo, because I did see it. It went viral like last week. They're like, Aikman says Cowboys are no different than the Jags. Right? Like losing in the first round is just. And he had a good point. Like, actually, sometimes it can be shittier because at least when you're like a 4-win team, you're just the season by about December. It's like, what are we doing? You lose in the first round, it is just, especially at home or the second round. Whenever your first playoff game is at home and you're favored, it's like someone rips your heart out, lights it on fire, and laughs at you while they watch. It is. I remember just the one year I made the playoffs and we lost at home. I just remember the next day it just ends. And we by no means were the favorite, the hype on the Cowboys and definitely the Packers. Tom hasn't had many of those moments, and the couple times he has, it's in the Super Bowl. So it's like it's the final game of the year. I think it's a lot more difficult when you got to sit back and watch like 2 or 3 more rounds. You're like,
yeah,
what the fuck?
But I do think like where I would disagree. Who am I to tell? I mean, what I would my thought is if we found a guy who'd never made it to the playoffs, who played 8 years in the league and never played in a playoff game. He'd be like, you know what? Give me that Cowboy game. Just let me run through the tunnel in a playoff game. Let me be in that moment just to have that experience.
He's talking about the feeling post the game, though, how devastating it is.
Yeah, well, totally. When you care more about something, when the stakes are higher, it hurts more not to have it.
Well, think about
I would agree. You're right, because you have checked out if you're a Jags player. What are you invested in?
I
Besides
don't know.
yourself.
I'm pretty sure Juszczyk with the Ravens never made the playoffs. I have to fact check myself on that, but
What years?
it would have been 13 to 16. It was post Super Bowl. I don't think they had very good teams. It was the post once Ray Lewis
So
and Ed Reed retired.
14 they lost in the divisional round. They were a
Okay,
10-6 team.
that doesn't
But
work
the other
out.
years but you're right. I mean, their other years were
Because I was going to say, basically assuming it, because I had thought
they drafted him off of the Super Bowl. 13
so-
was his rookie year.
Yeah. So the 4 years in Baltimore and then the 2 years in San Francisco, like he had gone 6 years without making the playoffs. That's what I thought, but he did make it the 1 year. But just think about those guys that I think Trent made the playoffs one time in Washington. It's the guy that doesn't make the playoffs for his first 4 or 5 years and then finally gets to taste it. It's got to be just like, holy shit, this is awesome. Because you just wouldn't know. Like for Deebo Samuel,
Buffalo would have been good too for him.
it would have. But like think about Deebo Samuel, like he's an elite player, but there are a lot of elite players on really shitty teams. Like he got to go to the Niners that are now it's his second NFC championship. He's already been in a Super Bowl. Same with Bosa, right? I mean, those guys have played in the league 3 years. They've won 4 playoff games. Like they've had it not easy because it's been hard, but I'm just saying like they've seen the fucking mountaintop of the league. Like this, they know what it tastes like and smells like, and it becomes addicting. But now when you're a role player, and I know they're not role players, I'm just saying like when you're not the quarterback or the coach, like a lot of stuff's out of their control. Like Bosa can be awesome, be on the worst defense in the league. Look at Khalil Mack when he's on the Raiders, right? So it's just so much of it. And once the draft comes around, it's like some of these guys could be just great players on great teams, but they get drafted to the fucking like the Vikings. Let's just hypothetically say the Vikings don't make the playoffs the next 5 years. Justin Jefferson will just be like
Playing for the Pro Bowl.
Yeah. Because it's not like they're going to let him go, right?
It's got to be hard. Not hard, but when you leave a team that's a competitive team as a free agent to sign a contract with a team that's not competitive, but they offer you the most money and you just have to take it. Now, you probably go there thinking, I'm going to be part of the thing that brings them back. And in the NFL, that can happen. It can happen really fast. But it's got to be tough to think like, man, what if I never get back to that? I'm just giving up that part of my career for the business part of my career.
Or, Guy, what if you've been on a team that hasn't been that good for, let's say you're a third-round pick, and you become like a Pro Bowler, and maybe a new staff comes in, and it's like they're not going to break the bank for this random D tackle, and you're like, you're going to hit free agency. And the team that offers you is like Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas. They're like, hey, man, we want you to come help build it. You're like, I haven't won more than 7 games in my career. But this guy's offering me $40 million guarantee, and all the playoff teams are offering me the highest is 26. It's a tough spot, especially the way once you play in the NFL multiple years, think how many guys you've seen get carted off the field, shattered careers in training camp. All you got to do is play 1 year in the NFL to see a couple careers end. Hell, you probably see it if you play at Iowa, right? Just a young recruit just shatters his leg in training camp. It's like, he's never the same.
Yeah.
Little Billy from fucking Texas, this guy would have been a star, but he had his leg went over his back, and we never saw him play again.
Speaking of which, how about Jerick McKinnon?
Looks pretty good.
Making plays for Andy Reid. Turns out, Andy and Shanahan like similar guys. Really creative offensive guys, they have a type, John. They want versatile, fast, shifty guys.
Well, think about it. Shanny
and athletic and pass-catching tight ends.
They were interested in Odell Beckham a couple years ago before it got a little weird. The Niners were.
Yeah.
They like speed.
Yep.
Andy likes speed.
I mean, Tyreek is just. How's he run around with the chain on his neck? Like, I think if you got one finger in that thing, either I'm breaking my finger. How is he allowed to play? Did you see the chain he was wearing yesterday?
No.
It wasn't like the Michael Crabtree Aqib Talib chain. It was like one of those thick, kind of like dog collar chain link. You know what I'm saying?
He wears a pretty tight. He wears a pretty tight.
Super tight. Yeah. Which means I got a finger in there. Like, my finger breaks.
Did
I
you
can't
see
believe, I can't playing with a chain on to me is crazy.
Did you see the still photo of the piece? He's like, I just saw someone still photo it, quote the tweet, and be like, "This dude peace signed while the defender was 2 yards ahead of him." He's like, "You're that's so good, you can't even begin to call taunting on that. That is a level of fu cockiness that is just." He peace signed him as the guy's ahead of him. Honestly, he's so fast. He didn't look like he was running that fast, did he?
I did not. If you had said, when's he going to throw up the peace sign, I would not have said right there. It didn't make any sense. But these guys just know Leonard Fournette had a touchdown the game before. Not like this on the goal line. I think it was the game-tying touchdown where he kind of gets bumped at like the half-yard line and just he started walking like he was already in. He just knew he was getting in. Just people don't move him. This guy it's a superpower to be this fast. And he, like you always say, he to me, he loves running.
Yeah.
Which of course he does.
Fast people like to run, you know.
Now I saw Florio say, like, why isn't this, well, how do they not, it's kind of, this should be taunting. I agree. Like all right, let me be clear. I have no interest in a flag on this, but I do agree. If you're like going hard at taunting, how is this in a different category? The one thing, correct, I couldn't think of this. So tell me if you can think of one. It doesn't feel to me like the NFL ever calls live ball taunting penalties.
The tauntings are like Sue when he's screaming or Brady,
Yeah, or Cassius Marsh, my favorite taunting penalty
of the year. That was a good one.
Like in college, that's a penalty that wipes out the touchdown. Rarely gets called.
Yeah,
got called this year once, but in the NFL never calls that taunting penalty for some reason.
No,
which I'm fine. I mean, I don't even know if that's a taunting penalty in the NFL rule.
Well, in college, am I allowed to flip it in the end zone by myself, or is that a penalty?
I don't think you can't high step in college.
Yeah,
that's a spot foul, 15 yards from the spot.
College is a little stiff for my taste.
The taunting video the NFL put out at the beginning of the year literally had an example of Tyreek doing this, saying it would now be called taunting.
Well, here's my take on this. Also, though,
is like, yep.
Well, in the fourth quarter, it's like, why does James Harden not get calls? Because in the playoffs, late in games, Game 5, Game 6, Game 7, we ain't calling fucking pussy fouls. We ain't calling taunting like this late in the game. Like there are.
I've never seen him call that period though.
No, but he might be right. Because I do feel like I just remember it going viral. Like, here's what the NFL was. Some of these things are just getting passed around. He's been doing this for a decade, right? I actually think it's pretty. It's just he's just saying like, I don't. Is that taunting or?
I mean, yes, but whatever. It's harmless. It's a pretty great signature, I think.
It's sweet.
It's kind of friendly. Like, I'm out. Catch you later. All love. This means peace and love. Peace and love. I'm kicking your ass, but I got love for your effort.
You got no shot. They scored so fast with that guy.
Oh my god!
They scored too fast.
13 seconds.
You think he should have gone down? No, I'm saying him. He scored with like a minute. Right? They got the ball back.
Yeah. What was the score?
I think the Chiefs were down 3, so then they go up 4.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, right?
The Bills go back up 3.
If you're down 2, then you absolutely go down and then just kick the field goal. If you're down 4, it's like, can you assume a touchdown?
Chiefs probably can.
Bills might let you score.
Yeah. McDermott, one scheme thing, I just talking to some people, they were a little surprised. Their 2 safeties, they got mad at the reporter, Poyer and Hyde, are legit. I think they might have been the 2 all-pro safeties. Like, they are stars, all-pro guys.
Chiefs went 2 for 1, NBA basketball style.
I think Romo even said, like, how did both these guys get all-pros and they're not Pro Bowlers? He mentioned that during the game. They didn't have those guys cover Travis Kelce. Like, usually your safety is going to cover they had linebackers covering him. It was like, what are you doing? But then they weren't doubling Tyreek Hill. They just kind of had I don't think they quite had a plan. It's just those 2 guys. It is just those 2 guys. Like, if Pringle beat you, fuck, Pringle. Great job, Pringle. Yeah. Just those 2 guys. And then you look up, they got 280 yards.
Someone else made the point, too, like, late in the game, you guys, I know it's only 13 seconds, but it's not a touchdown they're trying to get. They're trying to score they're trying to just get into field goal range. Now, at the same time, this is where I would defend the Bills. I don't know if you saw that criticism. Like, guys, what are you playing like prevent defense? They're just trying to get.
Well, you mug them at the line, and then Mahomes can't throw it right away. And then the clock ticks. The clock ticks.
I think the problem, though, I would say is for most teams, I would understand like, hey, what are you guys playing so deep for? We're trying to keep them from kicking a field goal. These guys can score a touchdown on one play with somebody taking off running. Right? Like you could just catch Tyreek over the middle on the first play, almost broke it bigger.
Just think of like backyard football.
Yeah, over the middle.
Send one guy wherever Tyreek is to mug him at the line, and then have two guys like staggered 10 and 10. But if you reroute the guy, you just allow free releases, he's just going to get to, 20 yards or whatever. It was they did the I guess they weren't quite doing the second D'Amico defense where they were guarding the out of bounds because the Chiefs had timeouts, but they definitely gave up a lot of space. Like on that first one, he got 25 yards. The other thing is he's so fast that a 25 yards for the average receiver might have taken an extra second or two. It's like, boom. You look up, it's like, that's 8 seconds left. How's this possible?
Rob says, let them call holding on the DBs or whatever time comes off.
I heard people say that, do that too.
Well, did that happen earlier in one of the games somewhere? Because Jeff Schwartz said, not about this game, but about a different game.
I thought more people were hyped up on the squib kick than that too.
Yeah, the holding thing, somebody suggested for another, was it the game? Would it have been in the Bucs game? Anyway, the point on that one was the NFL has a rule again. Like Chip did it. You might remember this. Again, as the Niners coach against the Saints at the end of the first half of a game at Candlestick. Hold. Saints had to kick a field goal because there was no time left for them to try and score before the half. Justin Wilcox and Cal did it in a game at North Carolina a few years ago. Hold. Just clock's going to run out eventually. So there are rules now that allow, but it's hard. Like, I think you can get away with it once. Once you do it a second and a third time, now the officials kind of know and they can put time back on the clock if they know that's what you're doing. But I think you can do it once, basically like intentional pass interference or intentional holding and kill time on the clock. And they're probably not going to put time back on the first time because it's hard. You got to be sure that a team's doing it intentionally. If you're going to basically say that was a free play, we're going to put clock time back. You can get away with it once.
I hear you.
I don't think you can do it 2 or 3 times though. So, all right. McAfee described earlier how a squib usually doesn't work because it's too fast. Would rather sky kick inbounds, which it seems like is what they meant to do.
But if I sky kick inbounds, I can fair catch it, and then no time comes off.
Right. Also, I'm potentially kicking like sky kick. What if
to the 35? Right.
I don't want Tyreek getting it either. Yeah, and to the 35.
I think ideally, wouldn't you sky kick it to like the 10? Would be the play. Because
but if it's at the 10, Tyreek, then Tyreek's going to take 7 seconds returning it, to your point.
Yeah.
Which is dangerous. Matt Dodge on line 1. Tom Coughlin. Remember that one? Deshaun Jackson?
That was bad.
Were you there? No.
I was there, yeah.
Yeah.
The one that has the t-shirt game that game. Well, Tom Coughlin sprinted out at Matt Dodge.
Screaming at him.
I think the next year they won the Super Bowl, so it all worked out in their favor. I get where Tyreek Hill would really rattle you. Like, hey, guys, under no circumstances are we going to let a kickoff return. He almost had a punt return like 10 minutes before that, right? So it's like you're kind of rattled. So I saw someone say, like, are we making too big a deal of this? They went fucking 55 yards. How about defense just make a tackle or something? Do something. Couldn't it just be simple as they went 55 or 60 yards. They were at the 25-yard line. They had to get to like the 40. Think how far that is. 20. That's actually farther than that because it was what was a field goal? 47 yards. They gained a lot of yardage. To me, the first one was so easy. That little thing to Tyreek, and he just ran for like 25 yards. It was like, this is a joke. The first play was a joke. Like you're just gonna let them do that? Because I saw a Sports Center. Of course, some intern was like, the Chiefs went farther than the Cowboys. It's like, well, yeah, one team had fucking 3 timeouts, which you get credit for having timeouts. You know, and Andy.
I did enjoy that tweet, I got to admit.
Do you agree it's not apples to apples?
I do agree, yes. But it's still, I enjoyed it. Because somebody asked me, why did Stafford get to spot his ball after the Cooper Kupp play? Stafford didn't, but a different official did spot the ball for the Rams than spotted the ball for the Cowboys.
But they handed it to an official, right?
Yeah. They had more time also than the Cowboys had. But what I'm saying is an official from behind the play, the back judge, so the guy who's already kind of down there is
So
the guy.
saying, why can't a side judge run over there?
Well, the back judge is the guy that's at the back by the play. He spotted it, and if you watch the video, you don't see him put it down, but you see him backing out. So they didn't have to wait for the umpire to get there and spot it. But they had more time than Dallas had. I think felt like it. Felt more. Although Stafford,
they had a lot of time. They were in no, like, I kept looking at the clock. They were not in a. To me, they weren't in a situation where they were gonna not get the spike off.
Yeah, it didn't feel like it either. Honestly, he could have spiked it earlier and gotten an offsides or something. Why didn't he do that?
Bruce Arians said that they screwed up. They had a guy that was in the wrong spot. It was a miscommunication.
On which?
On the all-out blitz on the play to Cooper Kupp. See, you go back and forth. You go, be aggressive, and then you see be aggressive where being aggressive goes wrong. Because all it takes is one guy. One thing the Chiefs guys were telling me, because everyone's like, why is no one covering anyone? Well, Honey Badger is basically their middle linebacker, tells everyone what to do. Well, he got KO'd like the second series of the game. So I think they would tell you, our guys, the conductor was in the locker room. And we had a lot of guys that weren't quite sure where to go because they get spoiled. 32 tells them all what to do. And obviously they know, but he can just be like, hey, back up. Like his football IQ is immense. So they can cheat.
Yeah. So that's a big deal.
Big time.
Big deal.
It's, to me, an underrated part about playoff football. And this happened when Bosa went out in that Cowboy game. Do you lose a guy like the last series of the game, or you go all game with the Honey Badger against Josh Allen? You're like, oh, shit, we're holding on for our ass here.
Yeah. I mean, the Niners lost Fred Warner at an important time in that Rams game, too.
But it was far enough. Rams or Cowboy game? What game was it?
Cowboy game.
But that was far enough. They were coming back, but you would still build up a lead. Like, to me, could they have overcome no Fred, no Bosa all second half? Let's say
like Tavon Wilson playing the whole game at safety?
Just for 30 minutes. Fred was a couple series, which is not. Bosa was the whole. Bosa. I guess they could overcome just because they just rush the passer. I don't know how they do it, but they do it.
All right. Good stream. What was that? Oh, the Bosa. Did you see post game? Someone's like, Bosa. I saw it on my Twitter timeline. Bosa fired up after the win. And he's got they go to the press conference. He's like, yeah, it was pretty wild. Awesome team win. You got to watch Bosa if you didn't see Bosa.
I saw it. It was funny.
All right. Thanks for hanging. Good. Tyreek.
What if he did a double where he throws the ball in the air and he does this? And then he catches it?
Illegal forward pass.